Today I'm moving MLS clubs to England to find out if they're the real deal or if the MLS is the biggest farmers league in the world. I've swapped the Championship's current top and bottom 6 clubs, with last season's top 6 from the MLS Western Conference and bottom 6 from the Eastern Conference. Then we're going to simulate into the future to find out how they get on, although some of the results are pretty surprising, so stay tuned to the end of the video to find out who's caused a shock. So the main question is, how good are these MLS clubs? And I would liken last season's title winners LAFC to Norwich, which is actually a massive insult to the residents of Los Angeles. But the reasoning is because I think LAFC will do well in the Championship but just not be able to hack it in the Premier League, kind of like Norwich. On the other hand, the lower ranked MLS clubs such as DC United, who finished rock bottom last season, I would liken them to clubs in the Championship fighting and failing to survive relegation. Perhaps like Derby County, which is quite a nice comparison because Wayne Rooney is the current manager of DC United. Now, I'll be honest, I am quite surprised at how high the MLS clubs' reputations are compared to those of the teams in the Championship. But I guess that's Football Manager's way of reflecting that these clubs are in the top flight of the United States, a country with a way bigger population than England. But in FM terms, this should mean that the MLS clubs are able to sign better quality players than the Championship clubs. But to be fair, that is already reflected in the current best players in the league. MLS clubs have 14 of the top 20 players in the Championship. And so in Season 1, that LAFC and Norwich comparison was beautiful, because LAFC win the title from Norwich, both of whom are promoted to the Premier League. Atlanta United beat Watford 3-2 in the playoff final to ensure they're also promoted. But I also find it really interesting that Toronto, Charlotte FC, Austin FC, LA Galaxy and Minnesota have all come in the top half. I'm sure FC Dallas, DC United and New England will be disappointed with their lower half finishes. Chicago have just avoided relegation, but Nashville finished rock bottom by quite a long way. So some of these MLS clubs are eating up the Championship, just like my US viewers can eat up HelloFresh, the #1 meal prep kit in America. I personally use HelloFresh and I love how easy it makes preparing, cooking and eating really healthy meals. But don't just take my word for it, even my mum is a really big fan. Mum, what do you think of HelloFresh?
I'm a really big fan.
You get fresh, pre-portioned ingredients with recipe cards sent straight to your door every week, and you can cater your meal choices to your dietary needs and goals. Obviously, I am a massive gym lad, so when I get my meals, I like to try and make sure there's plenty of protein in them. I'm just all about the gains. So to give HelloFresh a try, there's a link down in the description with some limited time discounts and free shipping. Check it out. So heading into Season 2, it's not been great for LAFC. They have been relegated, with Norwich saving themselves. And that comparison is almost perfect, but Norwich have actually saved themselves. Atlanta United, though, have made some real progress from only just scraping into the playoffs last season to coming 16th in the Premier League. Atlanta spent $52 million this past season to ensure they can stay in the Premier League, and they've made some pretty astute signings. But they're also no longer trapped by the MLS salary cap, so they can start to pay some really big wages for some of these players. Dropping into the Championship, there's only one MLS club that came in the top 6, and that was LA Galaxy, who came third and have just won the playoff semi-final against West Brom. DC have had a really big jump this past season. They were almost relegated last season, but end up 8th this time around, with Toronto and Charlotte just behind. Chicago and Austin are the 2 mid-table teams, but Dallas, New England and Minnesota won't be happy with their drop-off. It's pretty interesting actually that most of the MLS clubs are in the top half for salary per year. Clearly they should be able to outspend a lot of these Championship sides, so most of them should be in for promotion shouts. Unless of course you're Nashville, who got relegated into League One. But they will be back next season as they have been promoted, finishing 2nd in the table. So in Season 3, Atlanta United have made progress. They're now up to 14th in the table. Slow and steady wins the race, and maybe we'll see them win the league by the end of today's video. But there's no LA Galaxy, which means they didn't win the playoffs last season. And for a 2nd year in a row, they've come 3rd in the Championship, not getting promoted. Leeds, by the way, have dominated it this season with 120 points. LAFC take on Austin FC in the playoff final. We'll find out what happens in that one next season. And so in Season 4, it was LAFC who won the playoff final against Austin, and they've had a really good season, finishing 11th place. But Atlanta United have been relegated. It's actually a really good LAFC team. They've got some quality players in there. And if anything, I think Atlanta United's team could be even better. It's just they've not been able to actually perform together. In the championship though, there are no promoted MLS teams, but I just feel sorry for LA Galaxy. This is now, what, the third season in a row they've come third place and have not been promoted? Dallas and Austin just miss out on the playoff places. Charlotte once again are in mid-table mediocrity, but Chicago Fire have been relegated. I'll be honest, I'd like to pretend that I know all of these players in Chicago Fire's team, but I don't, other than Harry Darling at centre-back. So heading to season 5, once again we're going to see a really big spread of teams from the Premier League down to League One. And LAFC may have only come 14th, but they've got Europa League football. They just won the FA Cup final on penalties against Man United. And they really do have a quality team. I'm surprised they've not done better. Okay, we'll keep tabs on how they do next season in European football. In the Championship, I fully expect Atlanta United to get back to the Premier League, and they have done by coming second in the table behind Crystal Palace. Once again, it's an all-MLS playoff final between LA Galaxy and Charlotte FC. We'll find out who gets promoted next season. Austin missed out again in the playoffs. LA Galaxy have been unlucky, but so have Austin in terms of playoff hopes. But down the bottom end of the table, Minnesota have been relegated, and this is starting to become a trend now. Although in League One, Chicago have won the title, so they're back in the championship next season. Into season 6, and LAFC have stayed 14th in the table. Charlotte FC won the playoffs and came 17th, just avoiding relegation, something that can't be said for Atlanta, who get relegated. But of course, we are very excited to see how LAFC got on in European football this season. If LAFC go on to win the Europa League, you've got to subscribe to the channel. Now, the new system UEFA are bringing in looks like an absolute mess, but essentially in the league phase, LAFC were the 6th best team, which is really impressive. Because they finished in the top 8 of the league phase, it means they get to skip the first knockout round and go straight into the second knockout round, where they've lost to Nice on penalties. That's tough to take. Okay, I'll rephrase what I said. If LAFC don't win the Europa League, then you've got to subscribe to the channel. That's what I meant to say. Back in the championship though, and no team have been promoted. LA Galaxy still in the playoffs and still not winning them. Austin, by the way, have dropped off significantly. They were 90 minutes away from the Premier League a couple seasons ago. They're now fighting against relegation. Oh wow, it's not as bad as Minnesota though, because they've just come 18th in League One. Are they going to get relegated again? Things are looking tough in season 7. LAFC drop down the table, but Charlotte get relegated. But at least Atlanta United will be representing in the Premier League next season. But that's the only good news, because we've just seen 3 MLS clubs get relegated from the Championship: New England, Nashville, and Austin. I can't believe Austin's fall. I'd love to know what's happened to these clubs to just make them drop off massively. I mean, Nashville are in £13 million of debt here, and Austin are in £12 million of debt, so clearly they've been spending big, but they can't bring the money in to pay for it. I mean, LA Galaxy have gone from playoff hopefuls every single season to 17th this past season, $6 million in debt. But at least Minnesota have bounced back by winning the playoffs, beating Charlton 3-0 in the final. So for season 8, I'm a little bit scared, but the Premier League is looking promising. LAFC have come 12th, one of the highest we've seen the MLS clubs come, and Atlanta United have come a comfortable 16th. But the Championship is just a bloodbath. While Charlotte have been promoted, Toronto lost in the playoffs, LA Galaxy just missed out on them, but Dallas and DC United have been relegated. If the clubs relegated last season don't get promoted, almost half the MLS clubs are going to be in League One. Oh my word, things are really bad. Like really bad. New England may have been promoted, but you'll see down here Austin and Nashville have been deducted points for going into administration. And whilst Nashville were good enough to stave off relegation, and actually had they not had that 12-point deduction, would have been promoted instead of New England, Austin FC have had a really tough time. And even if they didn't have that 12-point deduction, it wouldn't have changed things for them. Oh my word, the media prediction was 3rd for them as well, so I don't understand how things have gotten so bad. Like, how do they lose that many games with that media prediction? It means they've got a really good squad. In the space of 4 years, Austin have gone from Championship playoffs to League 2. That is a massive shock to me. I can't believe what I've just seen there. So season 9, it's not great in the Premier League really. Atlanta and LAFC just avoid relegation, whereas Charlotte are going down. Toronto have finally got themselves promoted though, coming 2nd in the Premier League, but a season to forget for LA Galaxy in 9th, Minnesota in 13th, 17th for Chicago, and New England in 21st. League One, and there are no promotions for our MLS clubs. DC United and Dallas in the playoffs not getting promoted, and Nashville just missing out on them. Whereas Austin in League Two are just dropping down to 15th. Media prediction first. Their team is like meant to be insane. But heading into our final season, Season 10, the Premier League looks a little bit more healthy for the MLS clubs. Atlanta United, LAFC and Toronto all finishing mid-table. Oh, I just feel terrible for LA Galaxy. It's another playoff final they've lost 2-1 to Norwich. But down the bottom end of the table, New England have been relegated again. 3 MLS clubs came in the playoff places in League One, but Nashville came out on top, beating Dallas on penalties in the final. And poor old Austin in League Two, well, they have recovered to lose the playoff final to Notts County on penalties. So what we've seen really is there is a massive mix of teams in the MLS, and the further we go into this experiment, the more skewed it does get to the polarising opposites, as LAFC can stay in the Premier League for longer and build that reputation, whereas Austin, who got into administration, just dropped down like a plum. Do I think LAFC would actually maintain themselves in the Premier League? Maybe. I think they probably could do with the right additions to the team. Do I think Austin will drop all the way down into League Two? I highly doubt it, if I'm honest with you. But how good would Irish clubs get if you gave them a £1 billion TV deal for 128 years? Well, I've done that in a video. Check it out right now.